So I know we always talk about Doom Terminator Vulcan being like the epitome of the PvP meta for the average player, but when we're talking extreme endgame, there are like two heroes that really knock it out of the park right now. They're dot damage dealers, and we kind of assume that they'd become the best PvP team overall, mainly because they completely or a lot of their damage can bypass the crazy amount of shields you can generate by hyperspace on our Islamok, because, well, there's dot damage and you're not hitting the targets as often as you would with someone like Doom Terminator Vulcan. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. I'm going to show you guys something really cool thanks to Wayne, part of the Omega Project Guild. So this is the main team that we have in the thumbnail and that we're talking about. You can see here they are highly prioritizing, and this is actually, if you want to see, this is the Omega Project versus Waffles. I was intrigued to see and look how I performed. It was not good. Wayne absolutely slaughtered everybody pretty much in our guild with this team. So still having hyperspace on our Islamok. There are a couple things that are interesting. You have a combination of Phantom of the Fire Elena and Mystic Fairy Frey in this team. It definitely helps just completely dodging attacks. It's really, really strong. You have Natalia, and then the two big ones here, which surprisingly enough, you're not actually using Star Alchemist Holmes Young's core. You're using Geester's core, and there's going to be a very specific reason we talk about. But the combination between these two damage dealers here, they're dot-based damage dealers. So is Freya as well, surprisingly enough. But they can do a crazy amount of dot damage. It just ticks up. And as you guys can see, I mean, Wayne just kind of, I think Wayne beat most of us. Even without some of his support heroes, you can see he's actually just beating our entire guild. It's not down until, oddly enough, this is the team that won. I don't, they must have all been pretty much dead. I don't know. Really weird. And then JC takes over for one. JC gets the W and then back down to nothing. But again, this team is pretty amazing. Let me get back up to the top so you guys can see the full team list right here. Really strong, even using the snake synergy. So what is it that's making Geester so strong? Well, if you actually take a look at the hero, he does some crazy amounts of damage, and even though his Destiny transition on first look didn't seem that great, there are some really cool things about this hero. So the fact is, he can poison and he can burn enemies. It's really, really cool. He puts both of the dots up. Most people in PvP don't use dot purify. They're using crowd control purify. So his dots just to go, they just run rampant in a PvP scenario. When active skill and basic attacks deal damage to poison burn targets, deals extra damage equal to like, so he can basically like detonate the dots and stuff like that. Deals 25% of virulent toxin damage immediately to all enemies when self HP is under 50% for the first time. So it's a big AoE detonation, things like that. At the beginning of each battle, you get 3 layers of mutant genes. These things increase self-control immunity as well, so you don't have as much chance of getting controlled yourself while you're dealing all this damage. And then his active skill deals damage only to 2 targets with lowest HP, but it burns them and poisons them for 3 rounds. Then if you have Resolve, each layer will then deal 500% attack damage to 1 random enemy, after which grant self 1 layer of Resolve for 5 rounds. So you get those kind of starting to stack up. And then also when you're under Mutation Awakening status, it restores your HP, increases your attack, and get another layer of Resolve. So you can kind of see how all of these things kind of snowball together. Now, when you start branching down into the tree branches, you can see here, whenever you get a stack of Resolve, each layer also burns the targets and poisons them. So again, more dot damage going out. And then also when you have Resolve, each layer will deal 2 damage to 2 random enemies. There's a lot of things like this that just start adding up that start getting a little crazy here. You get some like survivability stuff here and there, but again, you get to deal more damage to lowest targets, things like that. Restoring HP to 100%, so even if you do have a chance of dying, you restore right back up. Additionally, increases dot damage by 12% for all targets on the passive. You guys can see there's just a lot of things that start stacking up. Then we get to his Noble Core of Origin, which is surprisingly really good in a PvP scenario. At the beginning of each battle, increases all allies' damage dealt to poison targets by 15% and burn targets. So that means you're dealing 30% more damage against those targets. Allies will then also release extra attacks after releasing their active skills, dealing poison damage and burn damage for 5 rounds. Then, if Self has Mutation Awakening status, detonates all of those layers of targets poison and burn, dealing 13% of the total remaining, capping at 5,000. So there's a lot of nuke damage going on, and because all these things happen passively and are dot oriented, they're not going to proc Hyperspace Hunter Ilamox shields because you can't block these passive abilities. They just automatically hit. There's no blocking. There's nothing like that whatsoever. So it's just a ton of damage going through to the enemy. Then on top of all that, we now have to worry about Destiny transition because heroes are able to get up to the 4th spot now. Now his base version of the transition skill, when an ally's base attack successfully hits a target, it consumes 2 layers of his transition power, so that's up to 3 every round. If he has an active, per se, like round 1 or something, this can happen 3 times in the first round, dealing an extra 1000% of attack damage to the target with a 50% chance to reduce the target's energy. So now you're also reducing energy for the enemy team so they can't even get their own active skills, which is really, really cool. So you kind of pick between which one of these you want to be running here. Don't know if actually this would ever be a case to use. Maybe in PvP it is. I don't know what they actually run. But then the first transition skill is interesting. So one of them is dealing extra damage up to 8% of the target's max HP, which can be pretty big. Or increase the target's dot by 20%. That could actually be really strong as well, because again, like we're talking about, this usually isn't an issue we even talk about because most of the PvE game modes, they have Purify now. So they get rid of all these dots that you work to spend time building up. Well, guess what? Now you have targets that are going to keep those dots on them, unless of course they have someone that removes some dot effects from the team, but that helps too. And then when we jump down to where is it, the third one down here, basically you can lower the enemy's armor, you can lower their attack, lower their speed. The fourth one is interesting. So Self has 6 or more layers of the transition power, additionally burns the backline enemies and poisons them. So that is 4 more targets getting more poisons and more burns. Or you could just go for like a straight 2000% of attack damage. And remember, this goes off anytime this triggers. So you can trigger it 3 times in a round if you have an active skill and then all of your like 3 allies go after you. This can trigger 3 times, meaning you can do 6,000% attack damage to all enemies one time, which is crazy. Or you can deal extra damage to 2 enemies with lowest HP. The extra damage dealt is equal to 40% of their lost HP. So like you can try to smart snipe the low HP targets. That's kind of a cool strategy. And this hero is really just getting crazy out of control in PvP, especially when you pair him with someone like Star Alchemist Holmes Young as well. Adds survivability, more dot damage, a lot of cool stuff. Heck, I mean, on top of that, you got Mystic Fairy Freya too, who literally has a sublimation that helps deal damage against poison targets. Lots of synergy there, but this man is going absolutely crazy in PvP right now. But again, if you're not anywhere near the extreme endgame, you might not have as much success. It's worth a shot to try though if you're interested, because he does still do really good PvE damage for Star Expedition. He's a valid target. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Let me know if you guys have either faced or done this type of team as well, and I'll see you guys next time.